Welcome to Dental All Stars. I'm Alex Nottingham, founder and CEO of All Star Dental Academy. And with me is Eric Vickery, president of coaching for All Star Dental Academy. And we're talking about integrity and leadership. Please welcome Eric Vickery.
Hey, Alex.
Hello again.
Glad to be here
Hello,
again.
sir. So leadership is case acceptance and leadership are some of your passions. And I could list you have a lot of passions. I mean, a lot of things you do: insurance freedom, speaking, phone
Yeah.
skills, coaching, a whole bunch of things. But these are really true to your heart: case acceptance, and then we're talking about leadership. So with leadership, I think it'd be interesting, and we're talking about integrity. Now, for those that may or may not know, depending on our logo, which you can see, it says training with integrity is our logo from the very beginning.
Yeah.
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 And you may have
Yeah.
to use a magnifying glass on the podcast. But that's our, and integrity means to be whole, to be a straight shooter, if you will. So, Eric, I think it'd be interesting. Tell us a little bit about, I love your origin story into not just dentistry, but into growing into the dental coaching space, and then eventually coming on to All Star,
Yeah.
and kind of like, I mean, you're a president of coaching, mastery coach, but executive coach. But before joining All Star about 8 to 9 years ago, you were on the cusp of potentially joining a different company. Give me the story
Yeah.
about how all that came to be. I think people are
Yeah.
interested in how you ended up with All Star and
Yeah.
how integrity played a part of that.
So actually, this is my second origin story. It was the hero's arc of like
The
I
heroes, like
wanted
you had you have a couple of
six
them.
six episodes. Star Wars.
Uh
All
huh.
So I had an origin story that we won't get into that I love. That is where I was birthed out of this with so many mentors that poured into me. And when that ended back in 2010, when the economy just tanked, I was approached by another leader in our industry to run the West Coast division of that consulting agency. And, we sat down, flew to this meeting in LA. I'm in Northern California. And we met for maybe an hour. And there were some things that were said that I think as your EQ, antennas are up and you start
Emotional intelligence is EQ.
emotional intelligence. Sorry. Yeah. Emotional intelligence things start. I'm thinking, man, if my wife were sitting here, what would she think about what's being said? She's my compass. She's my North Star when it comes to that kind of stuff. And so I remember sitting in that meeting and hearing some words. I don't know how specific we want to get, but hearing some words that just made me uncomfortable. And I thought, I don't think as great of an opportunity as this would be, this isn't the spot for me. That just doesn't match who I am at my core. And I don't know, for lack of a better phrase, I had an icky feeling when I left and I shared what was said. And my wife, she's like, that's odd. It was real sales pushy and getting money from dentists and we'll make millions and all this kind of stuff. And I was just like, that's not really who I'm trying to be. I think if I'm really passionate about what I am and what I have to share, the money will show up, the clients will show up, and I think a lot of dentists think that way about their patients. And so for me, I had this quote on my email signature, and I don't. It just says unknown. I don't know where it came from, but it said, "If you have integrity, nothing else matters. If you don't have integrity, nothing else matters." And I left that meeting, and I'm certain the ball was in my court. I left that meeting, and I never reached out again. I just said, you know what? We're just better to leave that alone. And just a short couple years later, I ran into Heather and Alex, and it just was such a better fit when it came to, I think because we come from family and dentistry. I think, Heather and I both worked in dental offices. I think there's just some uh, camaraderie there in that and the sacrifices that we made in dental offices to grow them and turn them around. So I felt like, all right, I get to be who I want to be, filled with integrity with our clients and see results show up because of that. So I don't know if that's enough detail, Alex.
No, it's beautiful. I mean,
Okay.
I think in a nutshell, you were offered a chance, a high paying opportunity
Mhm.
to lead, and as you put it, sales and unethical um, kind of ways of doing
Mhm.
coaching or consulting. And you're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
well, that I mean, money's nice, but you have to have the integrity. And then
Mm-hmm.
you came to All Star, and All Star was newer. We were the new kids in the
Mm-hmm.
block at that time, and
Mm-hmm.
we had a kind of a smaller coaching company at that period, and a bunch of different leaders over the years. And I remember that kind of maybe year 5 of you with All Star.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you only had maybe a client or two, or maybe none at that time, up and down. And I'm like, Eric, is everything okay? And you're like, listen, I believe in what you said. I put words in your mouth. What did you say at that time,
I
which was kind
said,
of prophetic?
Alex, I get where this call is coming from. I want you to know something. I'm in this for the long haul. I get what All Star's about. I just need time. I just had so many clients over here that I needed to fulfill my relationship with as I could grow into All Star. And I said, I'm here for the long run. I really believe in what All Star's doing, and I think there's a great synergy in what I have to offer in addition to what you have already offering clients. And I think that really came to fruition. I think that was probably 3 years, 2 or 3 years into me coaching with you, and then at the 5 year mark, we were really moving. So yeah.
Yeah, and then we had multiple iterations of president of coaching, and then I'm just like, wait a second. And then you just hit it off with the clients. And then we're like, will you be president of coaching? You're like, okay. And the rest is history. You're just a diamond in the rough, not just as a president of coaching, but as a speaker. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. I mean,
Hmm.
if you have the blessing to be at an event with Eric, and you said to me the other day, you said, Alex, you do a lot of coaching, a lot, and you're an amazing coach. But you said you're really a speaker that does coaching, and not a
Hmm.
coach doing speaking
Hmm.
and pouring into and leading or preaching or whatever the hell you do. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
The greatest show in dentistry when you're leading it, Eric. So uh, and also one thing I really appreciate about you is that having that foresight. Acknowledge, and you've been working with me for 10 years, is that I can be impatient at times, and like and you're like, Alex, patience, we'll get there. And that's awesome. That's integrity, that's belief in, I think it's belief in yourself, belief in the company. And Shelly, our COO, says that if you take care of your patients, they take care of you, your payroll.
Hmm.
If you take care of your
Hmm.
clients, they take care of you. So that's
Yeah.
this idea of integrity and leadership.
Well, and we're talking about leadership. So if you want to talk about a concept or a coaching hack in
Yes,
leadership, it's
please.
this. And out of that story, what is the takeaway here? It's if you can't believe in you, your team's not going to believe in you. And I love John Maxwell, but he'll say all the time when people come to say, "All right, how do I get followers?" Well, the first follower you need is yourself. Who would you follow you as a leader, and what do you need to work on you to do that? So start foundationally. Just start with personality profile, disc. Look at strengths, look at your strength finder, look at your emotional intelligence, and say, okay, where am I on these platforms? And say, all right, self-evaluate. How am I as a leader? Would I love following myself? Just like would I
Hey,
do
write that
business
down.
with you? Would I do business with you on our last podcast when we talk about phone calls? If I was calling me and listening to me on the phone, would I want to do business with me? Would I be excited about doing business with me? Same thing here. When you look at how I lead, would I be really excited about that? I just did a team meeting this morning on Disc with a team, and it's 8:03, and I'm sitting there, and doctor's sitting there, and one team member sitting there, and then everybody shows up about 8:04, and doctor says, guys, meeting start at 8 o'clock. I'd really appreciate if everyone would be here by 8. Okay. Now, clarity of expectation creates excellent execution. That was reactive. That was not proactive. Where's the lack of clarity from? Is that from the team? Is that from the doctor? What is that? Now, in that meeting, I also discovered the doctor's disc profile came out at 52% D. So
Sounds like me.
her saying, boom, this is the expectation. I used that as the example in the meeting and said, look, that's why this comes across as task and tell. You're telling them and you're saying, just do this for me, be here. So here's my, and then what you find out is every single one of the team members S personality style, except for one. And you're going, actually two, one D, one I, and you're
So
going,
just for
okay,
those that don't understand DISC,
yeah, I
that the
know. Here
D
we go.
is a
Right.
dominant style,
Yeah.
S is more steady.
Yeah.
Most team members are steady. They need that
Yeah.
coddling and support.
Yes.
Many leaders are D, dominant or directive. And so
Yeah.
DISC is a nice personality profile. We talked about it in other podcasts. We discuss it in our coaching program, and also we do it often in our events, especially with
Right.
leadership.
So essential to understanding where you are as a leader in this, because you're self-evaluating. Just like you listen to you want your admin person to listen to themselves on the phone on a new patient phone call. I want my doctors listening to themselves as they lead in those moments. And I can get away with calling her out in that moment in a very, very nice way and saying, hey, this is how that's going. But these people, you're speaking D dominant, they're listening S steady. There's a disconnect there, because you don't see it, and I'll be pretty rough here. I didn't say this, but you don't see it as abrasive. They receive it as abrasive. How can you be proactive and do that? If you had to do it over again, how would you do it differently? And you need to self-evaluate your leadership style consistently, and not to conform, not to bend over to the masses. That's not what we're saying, but to be more effective in how you communicate. Same thing. Leadership. You want your leadership skills up here. Your communication skills have to be up here in that. So, you know, we're really getting into the weeds of the HEROES acronym that we use at leadership. So HEROES: humble, equipping, relational, optimistic, egoless, and servant leaders. And in this, humble, right? Humble process, but confident. How does that sound to you? Well, that just sounded, when you delivered it that way, it just sounded like, do this. Come on, guys, let's go. Do this. And that doesn't get people fired up and want to follow. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. John Maxwell, right? Influence. How do you influence them? Did that really influence them at the next meeting to be there at 7:59, or did it make them go, oh, here we go again? That makes sense? Yeah, yeah. So you could really get into the HEROES acronym and really solve a lot of issues with leadership and
So let me ask you
understand
this.
this.
Give
Yeah,
me the HEROES acronym
yeah.
in
Okay, let's
less
go
than a
through it.
minute.
All right. HEROES, H, humble. Okay, let me back up. This is really important. Both ends of the spectrum. HEROES is just to remember the concept of this, but it actually takes both. You have to be firm but friendly. You hear how there's both ends of the spectrum there. Okay, so HEROES are humble, and yet they are confident. HEROES are humble, and that's the H, humble and confident, right? You can be humble and confident, okay? They are equipping, and yet they're constantly learning as well. So I can teach my team how to answer the phone, because I'm learning how to answer the phone, listening to All Star Online, listening to Heather and Larry talk online. Okay. I'm in coaching. Look, I can be coached. You can also be coached. Let me equip you. And doing that the right way, by the way. R is relational. You're relational, but you're also firm. So that's the R, relational and firm, meaning there's a fine line to walk here. If Alex is my employee, my team member, and I'm too in relationship with you, all of a sudden you're borrowing money from me. All of a sudden you're watching my dogs for me for free on the weekend. And that line gets crossed in that employee leader relationship. And also too firm, and you get into the boss strategy where you're just, this is how I want it done. And I think in the example I was using before, I think it was too firm. So relational and firm is the fine line we walk there. Now, the E is egoless, which is an actual word. You're without ego, and you're a visionary, egoless and visionary. I know you're our visionary, Alex. And the vision can't be like this. Story we just told. Hey, let's grow millions of dollars. That's full of ego, that's lacking integrity, and nobody gets behind that vision. All right. And then it's S, servant. Servant leadership is something that's been around for a long time. That doesn't mean you're constantly serving your team. I had a doctor say to me, I had to sweep the floor the other day in the hallway. None of the team members were doing it. They were with patients, and I swept the floor. And I said, okay, great. How did you communicate to them the expectation, clarity of expectation there? She goes, no, they saw me sweep the floor. I go, and they probably thought, oh my gosh, doctor is so sweet. She must love sweeping the floor. Let's let her do that every day. Okay, right? But
Right.
without explanation. So it's servant and directing. It's both. So when guys at Morning Hall the next day, guys, you saw me sweeping the floor yesterday. I love being able to jump in when I can. How? There's that word again. How can we make sure that we're all on the same page and making sure that floor looks pristine? Would you want to do business with us if you saw the floor the way I saw it? Let's talk about that. and you just create ownership mentality in that conversation. So that's the HEROES acronym.
Heroes
Humble,
acronym.
humble, equipping, relational, egoless, and servant. Oh,
Do that slower for
optimistic.
me. So the
I missed,
hero.
yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
HEROES, I got to make sure I can spell right. We forgot optimistic in the beginning. So humble, equipping, relational, optimistic is the one that we skipped over. People don't want to follow people who are negative, right? Optimistic, but real. Optimistic, but a realist as well. Okay. Optimistic. E is egoless and S is servant. So nobody's following Debbie Downer. I know, Alex, we had a client we were
Well,
working with.
where's
Yeah.
wait, so we have
Yeah.
humble,
Humble, equipping,
equipping, which means, tell
relational,
me again, equipping is,
equipping. It's just, I want to be able to train my people,
so
personal
you're
development.
able to utilize tools and,
Yeah.
okay,
I'm
so
equipping
humble,
you. That's my
equipping, relationship,
relational.
not
Yep.
relational. So it's
Yep.
nice but firm,
That's right.
optimistic,
Yep. And then
and then servant.
egoless.
And
Yeah.
egoless is part of
Egoless.
optimistic.
No, HEROES, HEROES, egoless, and servant is last. So you got to know how to spell
So hero
heroes first. That's
can
my
you spell
problem.
heroes? Oh, that's how you spell heroes?
Exactly.
Heroes
You
has
had
an
to put
E
the
in
X,
it?
has another E in it. So I had
It
to
does?
then come up with, heroes. Now, hero, HERO, we could have stopped there, but I needed servant leadership to be in the acronym. So I had to find another
But
E,
oh, you made
Alex.
this?
Yeah.
So wait, does
Yeah.
heroes really have an E in it?
Yeah. Type it out. Heroes. Yeah.
That's if it's plural, right? So
Yeah. You can
hero,
do it both ways. You could spell, well, I'll take out the capital here. H.
but
We're so
there's
funny.
multiple ways of, look, we're all learning a grammar spelling lesson today on the podcast.
HEROS is not spelled right. It's HEROES. So my wife, the English major,
So the plural
seminary
of
major.
heroes is ES, and you made it
Yeah.
happen. So this is the Eric Vickery, president of coaching acronym. I love it. I
Yes.
love it.
So I just want to say this on optimistic, just because I was so excited. I got over this. People don't want to follow the negative leader. You and I, just story time. You and I were talking about this client that we had, and we have a certain level of. I love that you have a certain level of people who are in the mastermind group. If it's okay to talk about the mastermind
Of
group.
course.
Yeah. So, and I remember us talking about it, like, he's just not a good fit right now. And we talked about it. And honestly, I think it boiled down to his lack of optimism. Very, very much,
Oh.
saw the dark side of things. I think a little more, a little bummed about things. And he just needs some coaching or maybe therapy to get to a place, to get to that. Because here's the deal.
Right.
I'm not listening to Grumpy Gus as a team member. I'm just not doing it. Debbie Downer is not someone I'm following. And not that you're going to be ignorant of challenges. That's the realistic part of this, right?
Sure.
You're optimistic and you're realistic, but you're not pessimistic. That's the balance we're looking for in that category. That makes
And
sense?
often when we talk about mastermind, probably my number one like attribute I look for is humble.
Mm.
And I think
Mm-hmm. You say that
this
all the
is nice
time.
because I think this is more holistic for sure. Optimistic and egoless. So the opposite of egoless is look how good I am.
Yeah.
Ego. We
Yep.
don't want that because the numbers speak for themselves and you have a balance. You also don't want to be so you have egoless, but you also don't want to be uh self-doubting unnecessarily
That's right.
where you're
That's
like
right.
I'm not good enough.
That's right. Here's where we're
And
going. That's
it's
the visionary balance of that is here's where we're going.
correct.
Yes, exactly.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you're
And if
making
you have,
and this all goes to and I think why we love what we do at All Star is All Star
Mhm,
is not about me. We have the
mhm.
founder's story, which is Heather and I and helping my father transform his practice from 1 million to 2.4 million in 18 months. Beautiful story. I talk about this in the webinar and other things that we do. Your story transforming your father's dental practice. So like we have a lot of this. We have the founder story, but and that is All Star is bigger than Heather and myself. It's bigger than you, the
Yeah,
president, and we make the hero of All Star is the dentist.
the
The hero
dentist.
of the
Yep.
dentist is the team and the patients.
That's
And
right.
so making All Star a place that and what's nice is when you're making something bigger than yourself, it holds you accountable. It helps you grow. I mean, even doing this podcast today is very therapeutic, getting coaching from our president of coaching and hearing about this. I needed to hear this, Eric,
Mhm.
what you had to say as leader to hear, evaluate. Am I looking through these characteristics And I did a podcast with Shelly. We talked about the firefighter versus firelighter. Are we here to help or make things worse? And I think that's critical. And we love to invite anyone listening that resonates with heroes, resonates with integrity, that All Stars is the place. We'd love to have you be part of this movement of service-based, integrity-based, great training, and great life and support. So, Eric, let me ask you this as we wrap things up here in our podcast. I love to get for you, our kind of major coaching tip here was heroes. Can you give me a little bonus coaching hack, like a short thing that we can, as we close out?
In the HEROES acronym, or just in leadership in
just
general?
In general leadership.
Okay.
This is our section of the podcast. I want a coaching hack.
So I would say this. You've talked about this before, the 3 hats the dentist or any entrepreneur has to wear, right? The artist, the entrepreneur, and the leader. Okay.
Yes.
Most dentists just want to live in the artist world. I just want to do dentistry. Most, not all, but most. And what we're saying is, hey, entrepreneur, hey, leader, let's pay attention. Let's wake that skill set up and let's dive into that. And so the 6 pillars of any business, you read these books, you read business books, Donald Miller's book, How to Grow a Small Business, or 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I'm reading one now on how to grow an elite organization. Okay. You read these books, you study all this, you get your MBA on All Star Dental Academy with Alex talking about this. What you're going to hear are the 6 pillars of business. Now, we do this at our leadership retreat. We do this within coaching in a way. It's not so formulated, but at our leadership retreat every January, we cover the 6 pillars of business. And so I want you just to audibly check this off. Number 1, do you have vision and goals? Do you have clarity of expectation from your team? And if you hear the HEROES acronym, you hear that in the egoless and visionary. All right. Number 2, team. Do you have ownership mentality and culture? Is it beyond the job description? How are you developing your team? You're equipping in your HEROES acronym, right? You're equipping. Number 3, KPI understanding. We do KPI coaching. And can you lead from the numbers as an entrepreneur? Do you know that when X is down, you got to push levers 1, 2, and 3 as a leader of your business, instead of just going, man, September was rough. We had a lot of cancellations. Why? What do you do in replace of that? So what action do you take in being optimistic about growing your business? All right. And then 4, systems. We're big, even in our verbal skills, they're systematic. So how can you create your standard operating procedures for even just answering the phone, for case acceptance, for insurance freedom, for scheduling, for huddle? All of that's a part of it. 5, training and development. And it's got to be fun. You talk about this all the time, Alex, too many dentists don't have team meetings. They're not doing the training. And lastly, the 6 pillars, leadership development. And understanding all of everything we're talking about is a part of leadership development. We get heavy into emotional intelligence, EQ. We get heavy into one-on-ones with your team members. When the leader grows, it creates space for all of the team members to grow. And that's what we're trying to create.
Talk about drinking from a fire hydrant.
Let's go fast.
These coaching
There's a lot
hacks,
to say.
They're short, Eric, man. 15 seconds, bro. You don't stop. This guy.
It's a problem. It's a problem.
This is why I'm saying live events, man. So that goes to my next point, Eric. What's new at All Star? What's going on at All Star? Tell us about some of the events that are happening. I think the 2 big ones being live and leadership.
We're about to flip the calendar October here. And so January is right around the corner. We have 9 seats left in our leadership retreat, January 24th and 25th in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where we're covering all of what we're talking about today, where you're not just, look, knowledge isn't power. Stop believing that lie. Knowledge is only potential power. Knowledge is power when you put it in action. Without action, knowledge is powerless. You can say it any way you want. January is about putting pen to paper. It's about taking that paper and going into action and saying, okay, what am I going to do differently in 2025 to get me different results so I'm growing? So that's the first thing I would say. We covered a lot of that today.
So we have a leadership retreat for dentists and practice owners. And this is where they're going to work on improving their leadership skills, their culture. We're going to have immersive workshops, mentorship, and action-oriented exercises.
Understanding your business completely, knowing what even like your profit loss, your KPI numbers, all of that's a part of
all those things,
as well as your leadership development. We have a lot of presenters.
And what dates? Those are going to be on the 24th and 25th.
Yeah. It's a
in
Friday,
Fort
Saturday.
Lauderdale.
That's January 24th and 25th. I'm pretty sure those are
Okay,
the
so
numbers.
that's leadership, and
Yeah.
as of this recording, this is only have a couple, like a handful of spots left. So if you reach out and it is full, then we'll get you on the next one. But certainly,
Yeah.
as soon as you can, reach out for that. And then we have
Yep.
the All-Star Dental Live, we call it live event.
Yes.
That's in Austin, Texas. And that we're looking at the latest growth strategies for your dental practice. And in addition to all the great content we have, you're leading the show as MC. We're going to have our whole leadership team, our speaking
Mhm.
team, and great experts all in dentistry. But I think content is just one part of it. It's also the energy, the culture, the rubbing shoulders with the top 3% of dental practices in the country. That's All Star Live. We do it once a year, and this goes to what we spoke about earlier: that creating that movement, being associated with that movement,
Yeah.
and aligning with each other and becoming motivated. That's going to be on the 16th and 17th of May.
May. Yep.
And then the day before that, we will let you know we're going to be having, you'll see it on our website, allstardentalevents.com. We also have some additional programming that's a la carte. So allstardentalevents.com to find out more about leadership and All-Star Live. Leadership is for dentists and dental owners, could be spouse. And
Yes.
then live is for you and your entire team. That's All-Star Live.
Yes.
So that's what's going on at All-Star.
They are powerful. Nothing better than when at the end of a program, somebody walks up and says, "This is the best continuing education I've been to." And that's just so, so great to hear without ego. I'm being egoless.
Yes.
But the
I
vision
mean,
of that is saying, "Hey, I want my team to be inspired to grow themselves to grow my practice." That's what we're
I
trying to
want to
create.
say this, and it was interesting with the leadership retreat, for example. You wanted to do it, and I'm, what would I say? Curmudgeon, like, I don't want to do an event. They're not that profitable. And you're like, Alex, yes. The president of coaching says, our clients need it. I said, okay. And then I said, okay, well, we'll do it if you get 10 people to sign up. You did that in 2 days. So it's a smaller event. It's
Yeah.
all almost sold out based on this recording. But I think that's the point of these events. They're designed not to make millions for us necessarily. It's designed, it's an opportunity for all of us to elevate together and with intention and purpose. And yeah, so that's what's new at All Star.
It's going to be a blast. I mean, there are great, great leaders already in the room that are those that have already signed up to attend. And that's also what makes it powerful when you're rubbing shoulders with other people who are going through similar things. So,
And
yeah.
it's interesting, all the keynotes we worked with and great speakers. It's interesting when I talk to them about events, they said, look, the content is not the key. It's the energy. It's the energy that they bring back, because we are about action-oriented content. Don't get me wrong. That's important. That's the price of admission. I keep saying that. But it's the energy you bring back. It's your team that has, as you talk about in Heroes and others, that ownership, or the 6 pillars you mentioned it, the ownership mentality. That's what we're looking to galvanize. And it's an ongoing process. And like I mentioned before, this is therapy for me. I get to talk to, rub shoulders with the president of coaching at All Star, and that's what we do. We dentists report to me, they feel like they're on an island by themselves.
Yeah.
And even I sometimes feel like I'm an island. I mean, we're a virtual company.
And they don't know what other people are going through. So think
They
about
don't.
those 6 pillars. Think about those 6
Yeah.
pillars of not forget about the clinical side of it, the artistry part of it. Just those 6 pillars. Can you check all those boxes that you've got them all down? If you can't, there's something that you can do to support you in that, and come join us. It's a blast. It'll be
It's a blast.
very, very powerful. Yeah.
Eric Vickery, president of Coaching All-Star Dental Academy. Thank you for joining us. Remember to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Get the episodes as they are released. Share with your friends. And until next time, go out there and be
Be
an all-star.
an all-star.